Ladies and gentlemen, hard to kill. We got the man, the myth, the night fighter with us today. How we doing, brother?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. So just so, for my viewers, could you just tell us a little bit about your background and maybe why you joined and a little bit of what you're doing right now?
Sure. Yeah, I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps, 0311 infantryman. I did my first 2 years in security forces, and I was assigned up at Camp David. And then I finished out my last 2.5, 3 years at the Second Battalion, Fourth Marines,
Nice.
with the Echo Company. I was a squad leader there, and then
Ooh,
got out. Went on a MEU and got out.
gotcha. Gotcha. What
So why
what
did I
year?
join?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So why I joined? It's just something I always wanted to do. And what else? I didn't. Mommy and daddy weren't going to be able to send me to college.
Yeah, I hear that.
So patriotism and no options. I was
Gotcha.
stuck. I got
Combination.
free college. Yeah, all you got to do is join the military, survive, and then you get free college.
There you
So
go. Say less,
that's,
right?
that's what I did.
Gotcha. What year did you get out, bro?
2014.
2014. Okay, I got out in 13. Gotcha. I
Yeah,
was
'09 to 2014.
so you were in Lejeune most of the whole time?
My first assignment was in Washington D.C. for a year. Then I went up to Camp David for like a year and some change, and then I went to Camp Pendleton where 2-4
Oh, I
is.
thought 2-4 was out of Lejeune. My bad.
Yeah, so Fourth Marines is split up. So one unit, one battalion is attached to Seventh Marines. One battalion is attached to Fifth Marines. I was with
Gotcha.
the fifth.
Gotcha. What'd you
Yeah,
what
because
what'd you think about Pendleton, bro? Did you like it?
I think it's probably one of the best places you can be stationed,
Yeah.
especially as a Marine, because Marine bases are notoriously terrible.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, Pendleton was definitely the hood, but at least you could see the beach from
Of
the
course.
hood. You know what I mean?
So it wasn't as
Like,
bad.
no, it wasn't that bad. I mean, yeah, if you go to the barracks, it looks like Section 8 housing. No air conditioning, hot
Hey, we're
water
not
was
allowed to talk about that.
right. Yeah, yeah, definitely no mold. Definitely had a great time with my no air conditioning and hot water that was out half the time. But yeah, like I said, man, I could see the beach from my room, so
I hear
no
you.
big deal. I just drive out to the beach and life's good.
Where you from originally?
Yuma, Arizona.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So DC was like your first taste East Coast?
Well, I guess originally, yeah. So originally, I was born in South Carolina.
Okay.
I lived in like Florida and Kentucky until I was about 12. Then
Just
I
all over the
moved to
place.
Yuma.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I usually just tell people I'm from Yuma though, because that is the place where I've lived the longest. Because my
Understood.
dad was also in the Marine Corps,
Okay.
so I moved around a lot as a kid, like every 2 or 3 years. But he retired when we got to Yuma.
Gotcha.
I actually stayed there for a while.
Gotcha. So did you do boot camp in West Coast or Paris Island?
Yeah, and I did boot camp in MCRD San Diego.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So overall, I mean, where's your head at? I mean, you got out first term. Would you say you had a bad taste or did you get something good out of it?
Yes and no. So I got good and bad. I mean, I was really thankful that when I got out, my company actually did a going away ceremony for me.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, I was just a corporal squad leader dude, and they did a little thing for me when I left, and that's what I that's what I told them. I'm like, it was an honor to serve with all you guys, and it was the best and worst times of my life.
Yeah, of course. Of
And
course.
I think that's true. I mean, looking back on it, I'm I'm more and more grateful that I chose to do it because when I was in, there's a lot of dumb bullshit that you have to deal with, as you know.
Of course.
But like when you're used to getting held down and fucked, it makes everything else after that easier, just
It's
absolute
weird
like,
because at the time, dude, that's all you can think about. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like just all the fuckery. But I mean, we've been out similar amount of time, and now just looking back at it, it's just I don't know. It's kind of nostalgic. You don't really think
yeah.
about that shit as much anymore. It's like almost like it didn't happen that way, you know?
Oh yeah. And, I usually tell people like, I have not had a bad day since I've been out. Yeah. Like life is so much easier.
Oh,
So
you're
that's a huge advantage because when everybody else is complaining about stupid shit, I still remember that at the end of the day, I get to take a hot shower, eat hot food, sleep in a clean bed. You know what I mean? Life's good.
so it's afforded you optimism. I like it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So you didn't take advantage of the VERP or anything. You just got straight out normal, you just rode your contract out? Because they were
Yeah,
pushing the VERP for us heavy, if you remember. The 2013,
yeah, I remember
2012. Yeah.
I don't know because I wanted to do my time.
Yeah.
It wasn't so terrible. I mean, you don't become so. I held the billet of squad leader. I was also a martial arts instructor
Okay.
for the battalion. I had I was a rifle coach. Like, sure, life was bad, but I still wanted to do my job.
Yeah. Of
You know what I mean? I'm not just gonna
course.
stop trying to excel just because
Of
life's
course.
hard. So no, I still wanted to do my time, and um, no offense to anybody that took advantage of getting out early. I understand why, and I'm sure, maybe you wanted to get on with your life and you did what you wanted to do. But for me, I finished my 5 years and got out.
I hear you. So did I. I hear that. Now, I mean, you're clearly someone that, just from what you just said, I mean, you take what you do very seriously and you try to be the best at it. What does having that billet mean to you, being a squad leader? Talk to me about that.
Well, I felt my job was to pass on any information in terms of like tactical knowledge, field craft to the guys under my charge. Especially after I attended the infantry squad leaders course.
Yep.
Where they really get you like rock solid and all the basic infantry stuff. Um, so I felt like that was my responsibility to make sure they were as prepared as possible, and then just take care of them, like not be a fucking dickhead all the time just for
Yep.
no reason. Because you see a lot of that.
That was my next question actually.
Yeah,
Does
that was one of the problems I had with leadership in the Marine Corps is
So you kind of went through the shitty leadership, the hazing, stuff for no reason, the
yeah,
fuckery. And what did you take that and mold it a little bit? So, you took the good from the bad and tried to make sense of a little bit to teach in a sort of way.
yeah, and I think the other thing that helped me was I was 21 and when I enlisted instead of 18. So I think what happens is a lot of guys
Mental.
join and they only see one form of leadership and they think that's how you're supposed to be. And so they when they become leaders, they're playing stupid
Of
games for
course.
no reason and being a dick for no reason. I was a little bit older. So when I actually got promoted to corporal and became a squad leader, I think I was 23 or 24.
Gotcha.
And um, by that point, I had already been on my own, gone to college. Like I had some life experience prior to the Marine Corps.
Gotcha. That goes a
And
long way.
so, yeah, I kind of learned that treating people like humans goes a long way.
Facts.
And yeah, I'd like to think that my guys listened to me because they respected me and thought I was competent, not because I had the rank and I could crush them.
Of course. Of
You know
course.
what I mean? Not that there's not a time and place for that. There certainly
Absolutely.
is. And it's
Just
just you have to be judicious about it because if you're the leader that always yells, it ends up not meaning anything.
absolutely. Well said.
Versus versus like the times where I did have to yell at people, they
It
knew like,
means
oh shit,
everything. Yeah, because they
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. They're like, oh, this must be a big deal because he's yelling now. He
Yeah.
doesn't usually do that.
Well put.
So yeah, just tactical proficiency and then troop welfare. The cliche things they say in the manuals, but um,
Keep it
I
simple,
tried to
stupid,
do
baby.
it. Yeah, but I tried to actually do it
Gotcha.
versus what like a commander might say that
Not
for.
just checking a box, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, we had a mandatory fun day. Troop welfare is accomplished. It wasn't that type of thing.
Gotcha. Just
So like,
so for everyone that's listening that's not military and wasn't in the Marines, talk to me about what a bad leader is to you, just so they can understand what we're talking about. What kind of falls short in that aspect of being a bad leader in the Marine Corps? What are the things to you that you notice?
number one, you can't do the job you're telling everybody else to do. So I remember we were doing a company assault, and my squad was tasked with running the Kazovac LZ. And so I marked the LZ. I'm talking to choppers, uh, bringing in notional casualties, and I've got a staff sergeant grading me who I know doesn't know how to do this, right? And at the end of it, he's like, "Hey, great job." It's like, "Well, you don't know,
Slow
right?"
down real quick, just because not everyone's military. Tell us what a Kazovac is.
Sorry, casualty evacuation landing zone. So basically, your troops have been injured and you need to evacuate them to a hospital. You establish a landing point for helicopters to land and pick them up. The guy grading me didn't understand what I was doing. And I know this because I've seen him fail at very basic infantry tasks. As a staff sergeant, who you would think, the other thing about this guy is he was Mr. War Dog. He had been
Oh
on
God,
yeah, he'd been on 3 or 4 deployments.
Captain America.
Yeah, and he would always give me shit because I didn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan.
Which means nothing in the grand scheme of things with what
Right,
you're.
but he was Mister like, well, I've deployed and
Yep.
you have,
So
and
he would hide behind that to a certain degree.
yeah, and I actually told him one time, I'm like, as far as I'm concerned, you're the luckiest guy I've ever met because I don't know how you survived because you're stupid. Like he was
Sure,
he
he
was just
loved that.
not proficient at his job, dumb. And so anyway, he's grading me on this, and I knew that he didn't understand what I was even doing because he somehow floated from place to place and made staff sergeant.
I often
Um,
wonder how guys like that get to the level they get to because I saw a lot of that when I was in, dude. And
because the good people get out.
facts. Now
Yeah,
explain that because I say that all the time. Now,
yeah.
what
Well,
would you, is it just because of what you said earlier, the fuckery? The games and maybe
it's a lot of things,
not
but
treating you like an adult, or what would you say it is?
well, let me finish up on the
My
leadership.
bad.
So yeah, so bad leader can't do what he's asking you to do. Um, but like in the example of the LZ, if I had fucked it up, I would 100% be held accountable,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Because I'm not a high enough rank. So he doesn't know how to do the job. He's a shitty human being to you simply because he has the authority to do so, and you can't do anything about it. You see a lot of that, guys just treating you like shit just because you can't say anything, do anything. Uh, Not hypocrisy, not just with the proficiency piece, but also just dudes go out. I've seen staff NCOs go out and get DUIs, and nothing happens to them, but then they turn around and expect you to make sure your boots are bloused and you're fresh shaved every day, and just not living up to the actual standards
Yep.
and code of honor that we preach. And you see a lot of that, yeah. A lot. You also see some great leaders, of course, but yeah.
I, you know, now,
And so that to me is like the condensed version of all the bad leaders I saw.
now, so what he's talking about right there, some of that can be changed simply by someone just being humble, coming to you, asking, "Hey, what are we doing? Explain something to me," instead of just hiding behind their rank, coming at you about something stupid, acting like they know what is going on or, what they're talking about when honestly, when the lower guys see everything. E4 and below, like they just smell that shit. If you don't know what you're doing, it sticks out to these guys.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, I did my first 2 years in security forces. So when I came to the fleet as a corporal, I had some training that those guys didn't have, but I didn't know like basic infantry stuff.
Yep.
So a lance corporal actually walked me through how to do a 9 line, how to do call for fire, because he had been there and done that. And all it took was me going, "Hey man, just can you show me how to do this? Yeah, you're an E3, but I know you have experience I don't, and you have training I don't. So please
Simple
spin
as
me up."
that. Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, sure, you're going to get a little bit of shit for it because that's just how Marines are, military people are. But
Expected.
uh, yeah, you just roll with it and move on.
And,
But
leadership's a big deal because, I talk to a lot of young Marines today, and it seems like it's just different. I don't know if it's just the caliber of individuals that's in. Because I've been on a lot of podcasts and we talk about is the military the same? Is it okay? If we get into an engagement right now, are the wolves still there? Are they training the way we used to? Are the ethos upkept? And it's something that, we go back and forth with a lot. And I'd like to hope we're good, knowing the Marine Corps, knowing that I know there's still pipe hitters in there training, the way that we used to. But then you see certain things like, the DEI stuff going on right now, standards being lowered for certain individuals to fit the billet. A lot of people getting out early because of COVID and questions are raised. How do you feel about that?
yeah, I think those things definitely weaken the force. And I remember seeing an article about a female scout sniper platoon leader. And after I had a good laugh, um, the thing is, those people will exist until the going gets tough, and then they'll
Yeah,
melt away.
exactly.
The problem is, did you fill a spot where we could have put a hard ass, a good warrior? Did you fill that spot with the person who's not gonna hold the line?
Exactly.
And yeah, with the DEI stuff, the only real problem I see is with females being put in places that they don't
Absolutely.
belong.
And this is not us being misogynistic. This is just opinions from people that have been in the military and seen it on a grand scale. It's not like, listen, I know there's hard females out there. There's certain individuals that can do the work and can do the job. But let's call a spade a spade. Women aren't built the same as men. They can't do the same things. And especially when it comes to, doing the stuff that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, you show me the best female fighter, and I'll bring an average male to kick her ass. And so, like, to me, it's not really an opinion. It's simple.
Cold hard facts.
It's simple biology.
Yeah.
Do you like? And the thing is, you can do the same comparison with men. Like, I'm never going to beat Shaquille O'Neal in basketball.
Perfect.
Doesn't mean I can't be a military member, because all you have to really do is be able to run and carry heavy things and shoot. But females can't really do that.
Facts.
And even your best female is not really that great. Because everybody always caveats it with that, like, oh, well, there's these really hard ass females. Yeah, but they're only like average men.
I think we have to caveat it with that because it's like we're worried about how it's going to look. Oh, because nowadays everyone's worried about how it's going to look because everyone
Yeah,
has an opinion and everyone wants to classify you as that word that gets you canceled, and that's not what we're doing. We're just talking about it honestly, which unfortunately is hard to do nowadays, man.
yeah, I don't have a problem with it, because if I get canceled, I'm only losing a small platform. So, but no, it's really not an opinion. Like, you should Ronda Rousey. There's videos of her, because MMA fighters are another topic that get brought up when you talk about
Yep.
women in combat roles.
Yep.
Ronda Rousey, she's on video getting beat by high school boy
I saw
wrestlers,
that. I saw that. Yeah.
right? Those are teenage boys
Yeah.
beating one of the best female fighters ever.
Yep.
So this whole, like, oh, well, there's some women who do it. There's some women who can mediocrely do it, but they're still not as good as the best men, and they're only as good as the average men,
Facts.
if that.
Facts.
Um, Now, that doesn't mean they can't fulfill other roles. I knew
Of course.
a female sergeant who was in the air wing, and I had to work with her a little bit when we were on ship doing flight stuff.
Yep.
And she was very organized, very on top of things. She fulfilled that role perfectly. Just don't ask her to put a pack on and walk 20 miles with a rifle and all this other stuff. She's going to
Facts.
fail, you
Facts.
know?
And it worries me. What is even I think a lot of them know that. A lot of women know that. And the ones that, you know, insist on trying, like, what is even the motivation there? Do you really want to do it? Or are you just trying to prove that you
They've,
can?
they've been lied to since they were born.
Yeah, that's so true. So
Yeah,
true.
that's really all it is. School told them that they're the same as men.
Yep. Yep.
School told them that instead
Unfortunately.
of doing things that play to a female strength, you should go do things that men do and get your face caved in in the next war with China or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Exactly. Well put. I like it. Okay. So, I don't know, before we put a checkbox on our Marine Corps conversation, you have anything else to put it? Any significant, stories about the Marines while you were in? Anything significant you learned or you took away from it? Talk to me.
Yeah, I think the biggest learning points were just, life can always get worse. So it
Oh,
gave me a real optimistic view on things because yeah, maybe things are bad now, but they can always get worse. And I know that because my first year in the Marines, I'm like, man, this sucks. But by the time I was at year 5, I was like, I didn't know it could suck this bad, right? And it's kind of like that Simpsons meme where
love it.
Bart says, "This
Yeah.
is the worst day of my life," and Homer
Yeah.
comes up, he's like, "The worst day of your life so far."
Perfect. Perfect. Well put.
Yeah, so that, and then just you learn what you really learn how close you can be with people
Yeah.
because even with all the bullshit, if I could get one more weekend in the barracks,
Facts.
I'd go right now.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. I hear that. I like it. Okay, so talk to me about what we've been doing since you've been out, man. You have a strong social media preference. Uh, you have a relationship with a mutual friend, Marshall over at Stripe 17. I see you guys been training a little bit. I love what he's got going on. Talk to me about Night Fighter.
well, got out in 2014. I started working for an electric company doing what's called critical infrastructure protection.
Okay.
And if anybody's getting out and they're looking for work, these security jobs actually pay very well, and they're not just standing a post like a lot of security jobs are.
Yeah.
Like me personally, I got to do protection for the not just the regular workers, but also the executives. I got to do threat assessments, and I actually got trained on how to do threat assessments
Really?
for the various facilities that they had, and then you know, 50 to 60,000 a year starting pay.
What type of facilities are we talking?
So me in particular, it's an electric company that powers most of Arizona. So headquarters building, our power plant, substations, basically protecting them as best we can. And also the reason the employees need protection is because people go crazy when you threaten to turn their power
I've
off.
heard that. I've heard that.
Yeah, and it's understandable, but
Yeah.
these people will be like it's not like you miss one payment and TEP shuts your bill off, the electric company shuts your bill off. These people are delinquent for months, and then
Gotcha.
finally the electric company will go, all right, well, we're not going to work with you anymore. We're not going to work it out. We're going to turn off your power.
You've
And
actually
there were
seen kinetic situations?
I've had to go to houses because people have come out with shotguns and things like that,
Damn.
threatening to kill the electrician.
The assessor. Yeah. Gotcha.
There was another guy who was just mentally ill, and he believed that Tucson Electric Power was mind control.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
No talking with someone like that. Okay.
yeah. So the wires running through the streets and the power plants, they're all mind control
Ah,
emitters, and they put out signals to control people. That's what he believed.
gotcha.
Um, and so I did that, and then I completed my bachelor's degree while I was working there. Um, and then that security position was contract work,
Okay.
so there's no upward movement. I was going to be
Yeah.
stuck there forever. So I applied to become a police officer and got hired, and I've been doing that for 7
Nice.
years now.
Nice. Tough time to do that for sure.
It depends on how you look at it. If you want to do police things, it's a great time.
Yeah.
If you want
Absolutely.
everybody to like you, it's a poor time.
Damn, it's a you put that perfectly. Absolutely. I mean, I follow a lot of pages that, focus heavily on EOF procedures and, de-escalation tactics with what's been happening lately with, I mean, I'm big on like situations where cops are, taking their weapon out and using deadly force without being able to justify it. And to me, I hate to be the Monday morning quarterback, but this is
Yeah.
something that to me, I can understand. I've been a part of. And from the outside looking in, is it just hiring the wrong people, or is it just departments not having the money for the training properly? What would be your opinion on that?
It's a combination of things. I would say at least half the people in uniform don't belong there.
Absolutely.
So you just got people that can't do the job because it is a very you have to, how do I put this? You want people, like if I was going to look for a guy to recruit in the police force, I want somebody who can crush anybody he meets but will not do it. That would,
Absolutely.
because some people might gasp at that, but like my level of training, I take training very seriously, physical fitness, firearms, that sort of thing. And when I go into a situation, I don't feel threatened by anybody.
Of course.
So what that allows me to do is handle things at a much lower threshold because I'm not scared, because I don't feel threatened.
You're
Right?
comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on a domestic violence call where a family member showed up with a gun on his hip. There are some cops who would have pulled their gun out,
Yeah.
even though he's legally carrying a gun. He wasn't involved in the fighting. He just showed up. I simply asked him to go back to his car. But with some police officers,
They're pulling out and yeah, absolutely. That's a
that would have become a
perfect
shooting.
example. Perfect example.
Yeah, but it takes a certain type of person, and
It
I'm not
does.
saying a badass, but you have to be able to look at that, what's going on, and not simply focus on the gun. You have to look at
Yes.
that and realize, okay, this is just a family member showing up. He's not involved. He has a gun because he can legally carry one. He's not really a threat. Just
Exactly.
it's not smart to keep him
I mean,
around.
that's someone, I mean, not trying to, put a battery in your back or compliment you, but that's really someone that needs to understand how to read situations. Situational awareness is huge.
Yeah,
That goes, it's probably, I mean, I'm sure the Marine Corps helps with that, dude, because being in that environment all the time, you notice little ticks. You notice
yeah,
little things that you can go off. And if someone's just not dangerous and you can tell they're just, used to carrying a weapon and maybe they're in a situation they shouldn't be, you can work with that. But if you see someone clearly agitated, hands dropping, little things like that, I'm sure you're huge on.
yeah. Military experience helps. I think probably most of our best officers all have military experience
Facts.
because again, the level of stress and training that they put you through is much higher than you will probably experience at the police force
Of course.
in certain ways. In certain ways, I think in terms of decision making, police training's harder. Like a day one private, you would never ask him to do some of the things that
Of
a
course.
police officer has
Of
to
course.
do in terms of decision
But
making.
still, is it
But
similar with huge responsibilities being thrusted on you at a low stage? Because that you see that in the Marine Corps, as a young, corporal to a certain degree.
yeah, yeah. For the most part, though, in the military, there aren't huge consequences to it.
True.
So I think the military has the ability to do that to you more because you're
Gotcha.
not in combat constantly.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, versus like you could be day one rookie cop and you show up to an active shooter
Very
event
true. See
and
what
nobody cares that it's your first day. They want you to solve the problem.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I'd say the starting block is people, and I think most people just don't belong there.
Yeah.
And you see it in the military too. I mean,
Yeah.
half the guys I served with, I was like, did you know what you were getting
I
into?
know.
Like,
I
did you
know.
not
I
understand what
know.
this
That's so
was
true. That's so
when
true.
you joined? And
Is
so
there
you
a
see it
lot
in
of,
the
is it, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, just like military and police, you see a lot of people who they're not, number one, they don't belong there, and they're not there for the right reasons. They want to wear the uniform and get the hey, thank you for your service, and then it comes time to do the work, like what you're really there to do,
Yeah.
and suddenly they can't be found or they're
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly. Exactly.
So
Part-timers.
yeah, and then of course it also comes down to training. Uh, I think my department does a very good job at training people, but there are a lot of departments that
Checking the boxers.
checking the boxers or just non-existent.
That bad,
Non-
huh? Jeez.
and so the one time something happens, nobody has any frame of
Of
reference for
course.
how to deal with that type
Of
of
course.
situation because they
Of
haven't
course.
been trained or
That's definitely something you need reps on, dude, because, you don't think about it till you're in a situation like that. But do you see a lot of parallels between, the military and, being a cop? Is that something that you have a lot of comparisons to, or is it just night and day?
No, there's a lot of comparisons. I mean, the police forces are usually modeled similar to the military. So like especially with the Army and Marines, you have your regular guys in the platoon, and then you have sergeants, lieutenants, captains. You have those same ranks in the military. You have awesome dudes that you work with. You have complete retards.
Yeah.
You have good leaders, bad leaders. And funny enough, like in the police department, you want to become a lieutenant or a captain. You can't just be some dude 9 months into your career, like in the military. Like you
Yeah.
can be a lieutenant with a year in the
Gotcha. Oh,
Marines.
so you got to put time in, you're saying.
These guys have 10 years sometimes, but they
Wow.
end up being the same as the butter bars.
Really?
Funny, yes. Somehow they end up being the same as the butter bar lieutenants that's been in for a year.
Weird how that works, huh? Huh.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who it is because you also get the pipe hitters that they were patrol for a long time and then maybe they were undercover, then they promoted to sergeant, then lieutenant, and they're like a cop's cop.
Yep.
Um, so you do see those guys as well, but yeah, it's almost the same environment, not as bad because they can't treat you like complete crap because they don't own you, right? You're still a
Yeah,
civilian.
I hear
You're a
you.
civilian employee essentially. You can walk away at any time, so they can't treat you super horrible. But there's a lot of comparisons. Yeah,
I think to me, honestly, if I were to, get into law enforcement and work for a department, I would need to be confident that they would stand behind me in a situation where stuff got real, because you see a lot of situations happen where the department just completely walks away and they worry about covering their ass instead of, taking care of their, officer in a lot of situations where they could. Especially now today because of, what's going on, which some instances I can understand and some are like, really?
yeah, absolutely. And that was a concern in the military too.
Yeah,
You
of
see
course.
Marines get hung out to dry. The way I look at it, it's no different. Um, you have to properly apply tactics to the correct situation, just like you would in the military. You know, you wouldn't go through the same way you wouldn't patrol along a road, right? That's a big tactical no-no. You never patrol along a road. There's certain things in police work that you just never do. Um, you wouldn't go in a ranger file across an open field. You'd probably use a wedge formation, right?
Facts.
Same thing. Just don't be a retard. Apply the proper tactics to the
Details matter.
situation, and you'll usually be fine.
Gotcha. Okay. So who kind of pushed, I mean, is this your trajectory completely, or have you had any mentors along the way?
Oh yeah, you have tons of mentors. I mean, actually, when I worked security for that electric company, one of the supervisors I had was an undercover cop for like 20 years.
Oh wow.
So hearing his stories, I never knew cops growing up, and I actually didn't like cops. I had bad experiences with them.
Same here. I hear
So
you. I get you.
yeah, and but hearing him talk about his work and the stuff he got to do, I was like, well, that sounds like fun. And then I kind of just went and did it. It was the same with the military. Like when I joined the Marines, I walked in, told them what I wanted. They got the paperwork ready. I signed it a few days later. Like I wasn't beating around the bush, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what I woke up one day and I was just like, I'll go apply for to work as a cop.
Huh.
And then in terms of mentors, I mean, you meet some guys who are just total badass dudes, and they take you under their wing, and you can you learn
Yeah.
things from them.
I mean, because it really is all about who you surround yourself with, bro. Think about how it is in the military. You get out of SOI, you get out of boot camp, and then you get right into the fleet, and you see the real. You see, the shit bags, and you see, the guys that are actually, have a career and they're actually doing positive things. You really got to figure out who to surround yourself with if you want to be successful, and that's really falls on you to a certain
Yeah,
degree.
absolutely. And I actually left a patrol squad because I didn't like anybody in that squad.
Gotcha.
So they gave me an opportunity. I didn't make a complaint or anything, but they
You did it
basically
the right
came
way.
to our squad.
Yeah, I hear you.
And I made the mistake of switching to a day shift squad one year, which, um, if you ever talk to other cops, there's definitely a difference
The
between night
difference.
shift, day
Yeah,
shift
yeah.
guys. So I went to day shift for maybe 7 or 8 months, and I got an opportunity to go to a night squad.
More
And
politics during the day, would you say?
they just don't want to do police work.
Gotcha.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not deputy do right. Like,
No, I
oh,
hear
that
you. I hear you.
that citizen over there jaywalked. Like, I don't care about most things. I care about serious crimes.
I get you.
And it was to the point where these people did, like, they won't even do the work that needs to be done.
Oof.
Right? Like, there's something serious going on, and we need people, and they're hiding somewhere,
Oh, that's gross.
having second breakfast or whatever.
What are the cops that like, would you say? Because honestly, that's what put as a young kid, that's what put a bad taste in my mouth. When like guys that would really harp over tickets and make a point to pull people over on silly things. To me, like, I mean, I feel like, to a certain degree, being a cop, like I would get off on like protecting people and trying, as you just said, serious crimes. Is that just someone that's like a certain type of cop, would you say, or is that someone
So
trying to prove a point to it?
this is another parallel between the military and the police force. I remember joining the Marines, and all I wanted to do was go fight and chase women and drink beer, right? And
Facts.
then I learned, and then I learned that there's just a bunch of fucking nerds in the military,
Yeah,
right?
so
Like
true.
the guy who walks up to you, the first sergeant who walks up to you and he's like, "Your boot blouncings aren't high enough, and your blah blah blah
Stupid
is
shit.
blah blah
Yeah.
blah." Yeah, all that dumb shit. It's the same dude who's like, the
Gotcha.
same cop who's
I'm
on the street,
tracking.
like, your mud flaps aren't high enough.
Yep, yep, yep.
Your mud flaps are supposed to be 11.5 inches off the ground, and they're 12 inches off the ground, and so you're getting a ticket. Uh, yeah, it's just those
Same thing.
people,
Gotcha.
because in my head, when I became a police officer, I wanted to get in vehicle pursuits and catch
Yeah.
real bad guys. But then there's still those people who just want to do that stupid stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, traffic enforcement
No,
does
I
need
hear
to,
you.
to a
I hear
certain
you.
degree, but like tint tickets for tints,
This is
tickets
what I
for
mean.
mud flaps, like, just
Ag
dumb.
light
Like,
tickets, like stuff like that, like
yeah, like, you end up just, what are the purpose of these rules that you're enforcing? You know,
exactly. Exactly.
so you can't see, the window tint's too dark, so you can't see who's in there. It doesn't keep you safe if they want to shoot at you. If the window has zero tint and the person in that car wants to shoot at you, they're going to do it. It has
Yeah,
nothing to do with whether or not you can
doesn't at
see it.
all. So true. Huh. How much do you apply a lot of, the tactics that revolves around the light infantrymen into your workspace, or is there a balance?
No, there are absolutely, things you can't apply. Now, obviously, the tactics are a lot less aggressive,
Of course,
because you're never going to say contact right and
of course.
start rushing towards the
Might be a
enemy.
bad look.
But things like contingency plans. So when you know you're going to approach somebody who's a bad dude, and you have, sometimes you can't plan, sometimes you can, but when you get the opportunity to plan something out before you go try to, take a guy in,
Yep.
contingency planning. What do we do if we get shot at? What do we do if if an officer's hit? Um, what if an innocent person on site is hit? What are we going to do then? Those type of contingency plans. Things like, not rolling in your vehicle so that you get shot in a nice tight box where you're confined. I often park a couple houses down and walk in
Yep.
so that I can get to cover if I need to. Those types of things, and,
Yeah, yeah.
route planning,
Yeah.
because
That's
if you're
big.
yeah, if you're trying to be sneaky, you don't want to pick a route where you go right past the dude at his house. You want
Facts.
to park in
Give
the
yourself
back
away.
alley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Okay, I hear you.
so yeah, you can apply things like that.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, when did Night Fighter come about? Was it something from noticing tactics in the police force, or is that just something you've always wanted to do? Nerd out over, infantry stuff.
Well, funny enough, I'm actually more proficient. I think I'm more proficient now at infantry stuff than I was when I was in.
Really?
Because you get taught something one way in the military
That's
and
true.
you don't always understand how to apply it. Well, on YouTube, you can watch hours of infantry tactics videos and somebody explains it a way that you understand it.
That's true.
And because I'm kind of a nerd for that stuff, I watch those videos from time to time, and I think I have a better understanding of those tactics
It,
now that I've been out.
it's
But
funny you
I
say it's
really,
funny you say that because I kind of harp on how the Marine Corps teaches sometimes. How, it's not explained in the best way for everyone to understand. And I don't know if it's just old school how you know how they do it to a certain degree, or because you can't just yell and yell and yell at someone when they're not understanding for them to pick it up.
when
You
they always want to use they always want to use their special terms too.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So when you're talking to a private, you have to dumb it down, and I've literally heard a lieutenant talk about shaping the battle space. And here's how we're going to shape the battle space. And all he means is we're going to bomb the fuck out of them until they are softened up, and then we'll send in the infantry, right? All he means is we're dropping bombs and
right.
mortars and things like that. And you can just see these privates like, what the hell is he talking about shaping the battle space? And then, so just imagine like a basic infantry tactic. They'll teach it and they want to use all these fancy buzzwords when you could just teach it in plain language and the person
Yeah,
would probably
exactly.
understand. Like I remember even in DC, like I wasn't in an actual infantry unit. Uh, they essentially wanted us to do roadblocks for Joe Biden was coming to the Marine barracks to visit, and they wanted us to do traffic control points. Well, they didn't refer to them as that. In the plan that they gave us, they referred to them as tactical control points. And so we're thinking like, what are we doing? Putting up serpentine
Yeah,
barricades
yeah,
and
yeah.
making an actual, we thought we were making an actual ECP.
Gotcha.
So entry control point.
Yep.
And so we start to do that and they're like, what are you doing? You're just directing traffic. Like, well, why'd you give it the fancy name?
Needed the buzzword, right?
Yeah. And so anyway, the way Fighter came about is I bought night vision and that became like the theme of the page was I use night vision. I'm kind of like an action hero type
Yep.
thing. And then it morphed into me making gear and putting out information about whatever, infantry stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
how to pack. I did a post on how to pack a ruck, just
Nice.
basic stuff like that.
No, you do a
Uh,
great job with it, dude.
yeah. So that came about in 2020 is when I started that. And I've been doing it ever since.
It's dope. Now, you think that'll transform into something bigger?
Maybe. Yeah. If you ask me where I'm going to be in 5 years, I have no clue, man.
I'm the
Because
same way.
I also never, I've never had a plan for my life. I just kind of go, yeah, I want to do that now, and I go do
I
it.
got you.
So like when I wanted to start sewing gear and selling things, I bought a sewing machine from a friend of mine who also runs a company, and I just started doing it.
That's dope.
Um, and then like the stuff you mentioned, Strife Marshall
Yep.
from Strife 17,
Yep.
uh, started training with him, and hopefully we can bring more people into that. And if not, whatever. But
Yeah,
he and
no.
I think the same way about a lot of stuff.
It's dope. It's dope.
We always want to increase our capability. Um, and so even if we don't get more people involved, we're still going to go out there and
Good.
test things and work on shit. I'm sure you've noticed we've been pushing auto rifles and
Yep.
drones and all this
Yep.
other
Love
stuff
it.
pretty
Love
heavily.
it. Love it. Talk to me about
Yeah,
that. Why do you feel that way about auto rifles? Explain it and to kind of dumb it down to a certain degree for the consider people that don't know what an auto rifle is.
it's simply a semi-auto. Sorry, it's a rifle usually patterned after the standard infantry rifle, like the Marines M27.
Yep.
Pretty much an M16 with a little bit of different operating system. It's piston driven, but it just gives the squad a lighter version of
Saw.
Sorry, let me back up. You get a weapon that can provide increased firepower, but it's still light and mobile, just like the rifleman.
Yeah.
Versus the saw, which was, you put it on a scale, it's going to be heavier.
Facts.
It's a heavier weapon system. It's not really a light system at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So auto rifles give you the ability to use all of the magazines and ammo that your squad have. You provide increased firepower, and you have more mobility where you can actually keep up with the squad. And you can perform all of their tasks with little to no difference, because when you go into a building and start clearing rooms, you still just have an M16.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not like a saw where that thing does become cumbersome.
Yeah, it does.
I've done shoot houses with saws and they fucking suck,
Yeah.
because I was the first 2.5 years I was in, we had saws, last 2.5 we had IARs.
Gotcha.
And you really do have to think about what you're doing with a saw in a building. We train to cover each other when we reload. When you have to clear a malfunction or reload a saw, you really do need coverage. Like
Facts.
the guy covering you has to stay still
Yeah.
for a pretty long time versus you just reaching down, popping in a new mag.
Popping a mag. Yeah, exactly.
And so I push that to civilians, because whether it doesn't matter what situation you're in, more firepower is always going to be better. It's like no one's ever went into a battle and been like, man, we should have less firepower.
Facts.
So it's just a demonstrable advantage. And sure, you could go get a belt fed as a civilian if you feel like paying tens of thousands of dollars, but this gives you a cheap way to do it.
Gotcha.
And it also plays into logistics, which civilians will always have a hard time with logistics, because you don't have the power of the DoD behind you supporting you. So now you've got a weapon that's capable of higher volumes of fire for longer, because it has heat mitigation systems. If you buy like Klein Machine or Red Right Hands uppers,
Yep.
you can do it with a standard upper. I've done videos on that where I demonstrate, like, you can do it with standard 20-inch rifle.
Oh, I saw that. Yep.
Or I talk about the Red Right Hand upper.
Yep.
So it is achievable without those systems. It's just optimal if you use those uppers.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, more firepower. It has more firepower, logistical ease, mobility.
Lighter. Yep.
And no difference in how you apply it in any task. You still just have a rifle.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we push that because Strife actually has a good way of putting it. And this is a far-flung scenario, but imagine there's a column of Chinese troops coming into your town, and you've got a 10.5-inch with 3 mags on your plate carrier, versus a 20-inch auto rifle with 12 mags.
He would. I love it.
You know what I mean?
Makes sense. I hear you.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we were just talking about Night Fighter, brother.
Yeah, so I got that started. I just wanted to do gun stuff on the internet like a lot of people do these days. And I've always been a huge fan of 80s action movies and like 80s metal.
Yep.
So that's how the page started out, was like, I'm doing gun stuff, but I'm kind of like a action hero type character.
Yep.
And that eventually morphed into me sewing gear, tactical gear, and then doing videos about various things, trying to put out information to people.
What do you get more out of? Would it be more of like putting your own spin on the gear and sewing stuff together, or doing some of the tactics and training?
Kind of a mix of everything, because I don't have a lot of products that I sell, so I'm not like I'm not a full-time gear maker. I do that I do a little bit of that. I have a couple products that I sell, and then I go out in the desert and train and put out videos with information based on that stuff. So I kind of do a little bit of everything. And then I do memes and comedy where I screw with people and make them mad or make them laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of dabble in a little bit of everything.
Okay. Now, just from doing it so far, I mean, you've been in the Marine Corps, bro. What would be maybe some of the things that you've seen tactics wise, training wise, that maybe haven't translated over to the Marine Corps as well as it could have or should have? What are some of the things that maybe the Marine Corps could have utilized that could utilize that maybe they aren't?
Well, I think on the civilian side, you have so much access to information that you can actually be better trained than some guys that only get their information from their Marine training.
One way, yeah.
And well, it's you don't always get the best teachers in the military. So, like when I got issued my ruck, I got a brief class on how to pack it, but I didn't really understand what everything you were issued was for. Uh, I mean, perfect example. Like I never really learned about if we were going to do some type of long movement on foot. I never learned about like ditching your ruck at a ORP and then grabbing your day pack and continuing on to the objective because I think we were so into the GWAT style of operating that didn't exist anymore. That
Yep.
was like a lost skill set. We were we were used to, okay, we're going to be at a large base where we can just grab our assault packs and go out and come back. And so that basic infantry skill, I didn't even really learn until after I was out and I watched a video about it. And I knew what an operational or an objective rally point was. I understood everything else in between, but I just never understood like, oh, you could transition from your ruck to your assault pack in the same operation. And it seemed like we only rucked to go from one place to the other
Yeah.
if we were going to be for a week or two to train.
Gotcha.
So some of those basic infantry skills you don't even learn in the infantry necessarily
Mm,
because they seem to tailor to what you're going to be doing specifically, which is fine. But in terms of being well rounded, I feel like I understand more now than when I was in.
gotcha.
And that's because you can watch YouTube videos and look up things where people do a very good job of breaking it all down and explaining it. Whereas in the military, you just got some guy who you're often handed a piece of kit or you're told something and you're not given the fully fleshed out information. And you could ask questions, but everybody's going to be mad at you for doing it, for asking.
Exactly.
And oftentimes when you could ask you could ask a question truly wanting to understand more, and they take it as you trying to fuck with them or question their authority or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the Marine Corps could learn something from that. You know,
Definitely. A buddy of mine, he participates in the tactical games, and we were talking about how some of that would be utilized greatly with the CFT. I mean, just some of the practical things, that they do there, I mean, would translate over, greatly to something CFT related because when you think of it, it's kind of just one way in basic. I mean, it just has a couple of different rotations, with the CFT when they could be putting fundamentals in there and make it a little bit more practical. I don't know if you've seen the tactical games, but it's pretty cool.
yeah, I competed in them this past February.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, you could definitely take some of that and apply it. And you're saying the CFT, right? The combat
Yep.
fitness test.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, the CFT wasn't bad. I never understood, like why do I have to lift the ammo can 90 times?
Yeah.
Um, I guess that's to test your shoulder strength and endurance, but then also like why do I have to throw a grenade
Yeah.
in a box? Um, I don't know. Why is that a graded event? Because how often do you even throw a grenade up until the CFT?
Yeah, exactly. I think
And that's part.
or twice on a range, maybe.
Yeah, and then that's part of the graded event for your test.
Yeah.
Is a thing you don't do very often. Um, and I mean, with fitness tests, I don't really get I probably wouldn't weigh in on those too much because everybody's always going to think that their version is better or their
Yeah, of
idea is
course.
better. At the end of the day, like I think it is a decent test. But another thing with the Marine Corps is I was only ever issued a plate carrier. So in terms of like understanding what kind of kit you would need for what mission, I wasn't even well rounded in that aspect. Like I was in Okinawa doing jungle warfare training with a plate carrier,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And a lot of civilians would think that's dumb because as a civilian, you can buy whatever you want, use whatever
Yep.
you want. And you meet a lot of guys that understand like, oh, well, if I were in that environment, I would want a belt kit or a chest rig. I never even got to that level of understanding.
I mean, in the Marine Corps, that really isn't even allowed that much, dude. Like, just personalizing your kit for the environment that you're going in. It's really just looked at like you have to have certain things, or you're gonna get chewed out or something. It's not really, it doesn't really translate to what we're referring to right now. When it would make sense to you know fix your kit depending on what environment you're going into or what you're going to be seeing downrange. And I
Yeah,
really think that's one thing that could definitely change with the Marine Corps.
yeah. I was never issued a TAPS rig. I never even heard of it until after I was out. And I guess I learned at that point, like, oh, that's something the Marine Corps issues. I never even saw it. And then, like the fighting load carriers,
Yep.
the vet never got issued one of those. I guess that's another item that the
Yeah, they,
Marines
they
issued.
have that as well. Yeah, you're right.
But issued a plate carrier with mag pouches. Maybe it was because I was in a helicopter company,
Gotcha.
but looking at it now, it still doesn't make sense that I didn't have some type of alternate load bearing equipment. It was plate carrier or nothing.
Yeah. Wait, did you have the MTV or were you past that? Like the puffy one right before the plate carrier?
So I was actually issued like four different plate carriers. I started off when I was in Washington D.C. in the security force unit. We had the interceptors still,
Oh
the
wow. Yeah.
interceptors. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were those, and then we had the big. I think it's the MTB. That's just a big diaper looking thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we got those, and then when I got to 2-4, I briefly had the Eagle Industries plate carrier, which I loved that thing, and everybody else I knew loved those as well. But of course, since it's so good, they have to take that away and issue us something shitty. And then I had the very newest at the time plate carrier from the Marine Corps. And it's basically, I guess now they have a laser cut version, and this was the initial one that still had the sewn in Molly.
Oh, really?
And that one, yeah. So the newest one they have, and it's basically just a laser cut version of what I got issued at the end of my time. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't as good as the Eagle Industries carrier. So I don't know why they didn't just stick with that. I mean, I understand now because some colonel had to get a ribbon for
Exactly what it is.
developing.
Exactly what it
Yeah,
is.
had to get a ribbon for developing some system for the Marines
Sadly.
when we could have just bought a plate carriers are nothing new. The technology exists. We could just buy it from somebody, but we can't do
Exactly.
that.
For some reason all that stuff is a problem regarding the Marines. I don't know why.
Yeah. And then in terms of firearms training too, I mean, there was just a lot of, I think the Marine Corps has a decent firearms training program, but there were still things that were outdated, like back when we had only iron sights, you would zero your gun with your gear because that can change the way you look down the sights when you
Yep.
have gear. Well, once you have an optic, that no longer applies, especially like an ACOG. So I remember we still had to zero our ACOGs with our gear on because the people in charge don't understand that as long as you have proper eye relief, you can zero the gun properly. It doesn't matter what's on your body.
Facts.
You know what I mean? Like if you get your eye in the right spot, it doesn't matter if you have your plate carrier plus a whoopee plus a fucking sleeping system on.
I never thought of that. Why did they make us do that? Because
It's just outdated thinking. They still thought that applied to the optics we were using. And what else? Just little things like that. For the most part, it was, in terms of a marksmanship program for a service, the Marine Corps uh, definitely has the best.
For sure.
But I think there's so much information out now about firearms training and everything else that they really have no excuse if they're still teaching that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the ranges could be, to me, updated as well. I don't know if it's a money thing or if it's just, someone needs to check a box and let them do it. But, some of the movement and contact drills, I mean, think about it, dude. I mean, you've been to most of the ranges, dude. They're pretty outdated and they're pretty, what we have is, I mean, ranges are simple, bro. It's pretty much just open land, a right,
Yeah.
left lateral limit, and some old B mods or whatever targets you're using. I mean, it wouldn't take much just to dump, a little bit of money in there and update them to, some, more recent things. But I don't know. I don't know. But anyways,
Yeah. I mean, I've been to Army National Guard bases to train, and they have better facilities than us.
oh, always, dude.
You
Always.
know, and another thing that uh, I didn't understand was why we were never issued more than 7 mags.
Very true.
Like if you're talking about doing traditional infantry tasks, guys in Vietnam were carrying way more than 7 mags, and it seemed like every time we were doing a support by fire, I would have to hand out bandoliers to my guys so they could reload their mags on the support by fire. Right. So there's just a bunch of little things like that. It's like, why don't we square these simple
Well,
problems
to
away?
you, how much weight can the light infantryman handle on, a basic maneuver when it comes to ammunition? I mean, what we looking at there for a number? I mean, how many mags do you think that you're bringing? Like at least what, 10 to 12 possibly?
Yeah. I mean, at a certain point, there's certain things in your kit that the weight doesn't matter. Like you're not going to bitch. I mean, you can if you want. You can bitch about the weight of the ammo. You can bitch about the weight of the water that you're carrying. But those things are crucial
Essentially.
to the.
Yeah.
And my main point with that though was just really simple things that never got fixed. I understand looking back how fucked up they were. Like a squad that's conducting a support by fire should have enough mags to where they can just keep shooting until the objective has been taken.
Yes.
I couldn't have to be running around as a squad leader throwing bandoliers to people so they can reload their mags on the fly because they simply weren't issued enough magazines.
Facts.
And that's another thing that I understand better now, in part because I have access to stuff online, information online. Like I was in when we first got issued the M27s, and those guys still only got 7 mags, and that's your base of fire.
I mean,
And that was another with the M27. That was another thing that was just given to us. Like, here you go.
yeah,
This replaces the saw. You get no additional training on it.
figure it out.
Yeah. When really that guy at a minimum should get issued 12 mags.
No, I mean, with the current climate, I mean, you're in the, private sector, so you're able to see this stuff differently. The next enemy, if you will, is looking like, the BRICS, the China, the Russia, the, whoever tags along with them. Uh, What are some things that need to be considered if if the Marine Corps of today is going to be challenged by them? What are some things? Because as you said, we're coming from the GWAT, man. This is a completely different stage.
Yeah.
This is to a certain degree island hopping, if you will. Um, so is that to a certain degree jungle warfare, maybe, or is it more, you know,
Well, I think we need to prepare our guys not to be on the upper hand every single time. Like at the Battle of Guadalcanal, those guys, like we weren't always in the upper hand in that war. Battle of Guadalcanal, the Marines landed, and then the U.S. Navy got defeated by the Japanese Navy, and the Marines were marooned on that island and still had to fight, cut off from whatever supplies.
Yep.
And so our dudes need to be prepared for that and have the equipment and training to deal with that, because my sustainment training in the Marine Corps was very minimal.
Yeah.
You know, I remember they taught us about boiling water to purify it, and here's your iodine tablets. But that was the base of it. I remember, you know, I got issued a life straw. I don't know if you got issued one of those, but that was
No.
yeah, life straw was an issued item. And now like at the time I was like, okay, cool, this is my water purification thing. Well, looking back, like a life straw is a terrible item to have.
Life straw.
It's not good for survival. Yeah, you have to get down towards the water source, put your face up to it, and suck. So you're burning calories doing all that, and you're getting minimal water output. Like I didn't understand any of that. And if you're going to be in a situation where you're stuck, surrounded by an equal capability force, you need to understand water procurement the right way. You need to be carrying more than 7 magazines. Like you need to be set up for long-term warfare in bad situations.
Facts.
Another case study that would probably help the Marines prepare is the Merrill's Marauders, the Rangers in World War II.
I'm not familiar.
So the Rangers, what we think of as Rangers now, you know, they got their start in World War II. There was this unit led by, I forget his first name, but his last name was Merrill.
Okay.
And they can't remember exactly what their mission was, but they had to prevent the Japanese from getting to a certain location, or they were going to just conduct a raid against the Japanese.
Okay.
Well, they traveled pretty far on foot, sustaining themselves and conducting operations against the Japanese. And very similar to what the Marines had to do during their island campaigns. It's just these guys were like in burn and stuff like that. But again, these were infantrymen on foot, sustaining themselves in a long-term fight against an enemy that sometimes had the upper hand.
Gotcha. Well,
like I think the Army and the Marine Corps need to look at those
definitely.
wars and preparing their guys for that style of fighting.
Well, I mean, no, hearing that, I think directly, I mean, what are we learning from this whole, you know, Ukraine-Russia engagement, man? I mean, from what we're seeing, what do we got really? We got drones being utilized to take out tanks, large, anything large with munitions that's moving on tracks, tires. It's really basically giving one person or, you know, even just one light infantryman the power to, you know, destroy massive things. And also we have just updated weapons being, you know, banged back and forth between trench warfare. What really do we need to be taken out of this and instituting to our guys so, you know, we do have that knowledge to be able to, you know, handle situations like that, would you say?
Well, I think the biggest lesson out of Ukraine is that drones are just going to become part of warfare.
Yeah.
It's just another dimension. You know, the same way our great grandfathers had to contend with machine guns in World War One. You're just going to have to figure out how to employ them and mitigate them at the same time. It's just going to become a new thing that you have to balance.
Yep.
Right. The same way you would suppress a machine gun bunker and then assault it and throw grenades and kill the gun team and everybody inside the bunker. That there's just got to be tactics and technology developed to not only employ drones but kill them as well. And I'm not smart enough to really figure that out. I'm not going to lie.
I think that's the biggest one, dude. I think drone defeat is the biggest, you know, obstacle that we're looking at right now because as you see, I mean, what do they have right now? I mean, all I've been seeing shotguns, maybe guys trying to snipe them, you know, maybe an EMP. I haven't seen that, but
yeah, and there are detectors that you can buy, but that only tells you that they're coming. Doesn't stop them.
exactly. So you're just fucked.
Yeah, I mean, you can use netting. They can't really fly through trees well, so you can put yourself you can position yourself under trees or brush, but if it has a payload, it's still going to be close and at least hurt you.
Yeah.
If not still kill you. So there's no good solutions right now. As far as I can tell, your best bet is to avoid detection, which in most cases is going to be cloaking your thermal signature. Yeah, I don't have good answers right
What
now.
can you even do to cloak your thermal figure? Just keep your body temperature down, or be cold to a certain degree? Water,
Well,
maybe?
like if you're in a fighting position, you can put up tarps and netting in front of you. The key though is you also have to make those tarps look like they're not there either. So you
Yeah.
can't put your tarp out in front of you to block your signature. You would have to then put vegetation and netting on it to make it look like it's not a tarp, because it'll end up just looking like a big box
Yeah, exactly.
in a thermal optic. But that's those are only solutions for when you're static. Like you're in a fighting position and
Yep.
you're providing cover for yourself to block
You
your
don't have
thermal
to
signal.
move. Yeah.
When you have to move, your options are like those $400 to $500 garments that you can buy that cloak your signature, and those are available to civilians, but they're that price.
What are they called?
Well, I think it's a company called Ghost Gilly makes them.
Oh, that's cool.
Bees Combat Systems makes them. Relv Camo makes them.
I'll have to check those out.
Yeah, they're expensive, but they work, and it's probably the best solution for if you need to move and stay still, because at that point you can use that again as your cover in a fighting position or whatever. But once you're detected, as far as I have read up and researched, there's no real
Yeah.
good solution.
Yeah, I mean,
You
you've seen what they've been doing, dude. I don't know if you follow, I think it's Beers and Battlefield or something like that. It just shows a bunch of clips of them guys offing themselves when they have, a drone overhead.
Yeah, and I've seen videos of a couple guys moving together, and one of them gets hit, and the other dude offs that guy that
Yeah,
got
I
hit.
saw. Yeah, I saw that was. God damn.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it, man. In
No,
that
I hear
situation,
you. I get it.
so might as well help that guy out,
Yeah,
put him out of his
facts.
misery.
Facts. I hear that. Okay, so I mean, what else, man? Night Fighter is clearly something that you're enjoying, man, and you do a great job at it. I love you putting your 80s spin on it. I love, just to see that you're getting into it and getting something out of it as well. Is that going to eventually become like a classroom type environment for civilians, or is it just going to just, continue on the trajectory that it is right now?
Yeah, for now it's just going to continue like it is, dude. I'm not very good at making plans. Like if you were to ask me for my 5 to 10 year plan, I don't know. Um, I didn't even think I was going to be sewing technical gear and learning to sew and all this stuff 4 years ago. Um, so I'll continue to put out the information that I want to put out.
Yep.
That is one thing I'll continue doing. Like I don't follow trends
Gotcha.
because trends come and go, and trends are usually like you're never going to see me going to SHOT Show and being like, oh, here's the new pee pee poo poo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's my term for all that stuff. Like, oh, the new pee pee poo poo
Yep.
pistol.
Yep.
That isn't going to change anything about how you do anything, but it's new, so buy it. It's never going to be like that. I'm going to talk about the topics that I want to discuss, and I'll put out information I want to put out. And speaking of drones, I've been trying to develop SOPs around utilizing drones, and I've been pushing auto rifles really hard for civilians. What else?
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, you,
trying to
you
get people to increase their own capabilities.
yeah, yeah. Well, one last thing, man. I mean, we talked about possible engagements coming up. We talked, transitioning out of the GWAT. You spent some time in the Marines, man. Why don't you talk to veterans and maybe some of the guys that are still in, that are, kind of agitated because they haven't had, a deployment, infantry guys, you know how they are when they don't have something to sharpen their teeth on. Now, but we see on the horizon that there is something, possible coming up? Why don't you give them a word if you could real quick, man.
Sure, yeah. You know, I didn't deploy myself, and that's what I joined to do. So I actually enlisted late 2008, and I went to boot camp February 2009. And I remember when I enlisted, I walked in, told them I wanted the infantry. They gave me an infantry contract. I asked my recruiter, I was like, if I go infantry, I'll go to Iraq or Afghanistan, right? And he goes, yep. And then I signed up. 5 years later, I didn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan,
Ugh.
and that was when the Iraq was kind of winding down, but
Afghan was breaking up. Yeah.
Yeah, Afghanistan was still there was still
Stuff going
lots
on. Yeah.
to be done, and I didn't get to see any of it, and that bugged me for a long time, and I felt like a piece of shit for a long time because while that's going on, and I'm doing these other assignments, I have friends that are getting hurt.
Yep.
I've got multiple friends that are double amputees,
Yep.
friends getting killed, and it's like sitting on the sidelines watching the football game and knowing you're not going to get in. So I felt I held it against myself for a long time. But what guys have to realize is you do nothing more than what you are told when you're in the military. And like my example, and I'm sure other guys experience this as well. I was an infantryman wanting to go to war, and I still couldn't do that because that's not what the Marine Corps told me to do. So one thing I would say is don't feel like you're less, don't feel like you're bad. You've put yourself out there. You don't control when the wars come and go. Like think about guys who were in Delta Force during the 90s.
Same
Are
thing.
they like are they less than some guy who went to Iraq and Afghanistan 3 or 4 times?
I hear you.
No. One was in at a time of peace and one was in at a time of war. But that Delta Force guy clearly wanted to get into some shit or he wouldn't be Delta Force.
He put himself out there, you know what I mean? And you're right, dude. This is something, that does affect a lot of people because, when you put yourself out there to do the damn thing and you're not selected or, the deployment doesn't come to you guys and you see friends of yours, losing their legs or losing their lives and you're just sitting on the sideline, it does affect a lot of guys. And I know personally a lot of my friends that have been in the same position that it's affected them too. And even after they got out, they look at themselves as less to a certain degree. But you're right, you can't do that. It's out of your control.
Yeah, and then, there may be conflicts on the horizon, but what I would suggest is don't stay in the military if that's all you're hoping for. Because I actually had a friend tell me that. He's like, hey, man, so you didn't get a deployment on your first enlistment, enlist again and you'll get one. Like, no, I'm not. I already gave the Marines 5 years of my
Give them
life.
5 more years of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, and I only wanted to do one thing. I didn't really want much out of it, and I didn't even get to do the one thing I wanted to do. So I wouldn't plan your life around the fact that maybe a war is going to come. Don't do 20 years and then never go to war, and then you're like, well, fuck, I didn't even want to be here, other than hoping that a war was going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's the pro tip: if a real war happens again, they're going to let you back in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
They're going to be like, oh, you're back. Hey, yeah,
Yeah.
good. Here's your rifle.
Yeah, exactly. Still here.
Yeah, like I'm going to be 38 pretty soon, and if war kicks off with China, they're going to allow me to go right back in.
Facts. Facts.
I'm going if I want to go be part of a major war that might happen, especially with the enemies that you mentioned, Russia, China, and their alliances that they're forming.
Yep.
They're going to need people, and especially if you have prior military service, I'm sure they'll look at you like a godsend.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it, man. Like you look back at World War II in Korea, there were dudes who weren't even 18 that were getting in on that. They lied about their age to get in. And there were guys who were way over the hill and still got into the military and did badass shit. Because those type of events, they're going to loosen up their standards for who they're letting in.
Oh,
So,
dude, I was actually with 2-3 and I got over to Afghan a couple of times, but guys in a couple different units that were right next to me, dude, didn't. You know what I'm saying? So I understand it, dude, and it sucks because I was no better than them, they were no better than me. Like it's just out of their hands, man. Like there's and and you're right, dude. A lot of people harp on that heavy. If you haven't deployed or you don't have a car, you're not worth shit. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
That's
earlier I mentioned a staff sergeant who he was Mr. War Dog.
yeah,
And actually another leader of mine said something to me that stuck with me for a while too. But I watched this staff sergeant who had 3 or 4 deployments, combat deployments, and we were doing a training exercise where he attacked the wrong objective twice. He had to do remedials and still fucked it up on his remedials. And then we were doing some mount training, or urban warfare training.
yep, yep.
And I don't know if you've ever heard of a courtyard battle drill, but you don't just run into an open area surrounded by buildings.
No.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what he did, and his squad got lit up. And like I said, I consider him the luckiest guy alive because I don't know how he survived. He's a fucking retard.
Well, that just shows you it really doesn't mean shit,
Yeah, and I actually had a gunny, one of the gunnies in our company, tell me that and this dude was super salty. He had like 6 or 7 deployments over his career, and he's like, "Look, man, there's good dudes and there's shitbags, and I can tell you that the combat deployments don't determine that."
Yeah, exactly.
And I also like the guys that tended to harp on those deployments tended to be the shitbags because I really good. So when I got to 2-4, I think I mentioned I was kind of behind the curve. I hadn't been doing the infantry things.
Course. Yeah.
Well, I had some good sergeants that were combat veterans. They took me under their wing. They never put me down for not getting to do something that I can't control.
You see how just real quick, slow down real quick, because what you're talking about is something that happens. And we're talking about it candidly because we understand that and we've been through it. But that's something that happens, man. Guys, when you're a new guy in an infantry unit, in an infantry battalion or a line company, you come there and you have no prior experience, you haven't pumped out at all. They tend to shit on you, man. They don't want anything to do with you. When what really should be happening, you should be somewhat of a big brother. You should take them under your wing and be like, hey, listen, this is the stuff you got to know. This is what you got to fucking, this is what you got to do. And, sometimes that doesn't happen.
Yeah. And with me, I got both. I had people that would give me shit, and then I also had people that took me under their wing. And the guys that took me under their wing were like the squared away, solid sergeants I wanted to be like.
Yep.
So they were role models for the entire unit. And it was kind of funny. After I'd been there maybe a year, we got a drop of new Marines show up to the barracks, and I was, tasked with introducing them and bringing them in.
Yep.
And I was just kind of like not super friendly, but just matter of fact and not.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yep.
I wasn't being a dick, but I wasn't being their friend either. I was just getting. And then when I bring them to the barracks, there's these guys on the catwalks, like,
of course,
fun of them and blah blah blah. And I even turned to him and I'm like, who's always here greeting the new Marines, the boots, the fucking shitbags. I like called these guys out. I was like, don't be like them.
Yeah.
And it literally, one of the dudes on the catwalks making fun of these guys was a dude who was in the process of getting kicked out for smoking meth.
Yeah, that's
right. And it's like, hey, and he had an Afghanistan deployment. It's like, hey, good job on war.
Yeah.
Looks like you learned a lot about
doing
life.
Great. Yeah.
Making great decisions after war.
Yeah. Fuck. Stupidity. But as you know, dude, that's rampant in the Marine Corps. You just got to rise above it. It's on you, dude. It's on you to surround yourself, with the right people, and it's on you to go after the things that make you the Marine that you can be. And I get that completely. But yeah, well, hey man, it's a pleasure having you on. Thanks for taking the time. I'd love to talk to you again, man. If there's anything, where can everybody find you at, bro?
Instagram mostly at _fighter_0. And that name has no significance. It's just the name that was available when I typed it in. Because a lot of people have asked me, like, what's the significance? Does the _0 mean anything? Like, no, it's just I couldn't get the original Night Fighter. Couldn't get the original fucking line.
That's funny.
That, and then I have a YouTube channel that is much smaller, but I have some stuff on there as well. And that's just, you can type in Night Fighter, you might not be able to find it, but if you type in like Night Fighter auto rifle, something will usually come up.
Okay.
So you can find me there. And that's about it. I don't have any other social media stuff.
Okay. Cool. Well, hey man, I'll post some of your stuff and I'll post your YouTube and your Instagram under here so everyone will be able to find you. And once again, man, keep doing your thing. I love your content and it's definitely helping some guys out. Love what you're doing. Love to see that you get something out of it and appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, man. Have a good one. Semper.
Later.